Step right up and join the most vibrant circus community in the world, circustalk.com. This is In Center Ring. I'm your host, Jonathan Lee Iverson. Graced with an undisputed genius, she is an athletic marvel who would ascend to world champion status, even legend. Through trial and triumph, she is an unstoppable force with an indomitable spirit. In Center Ring presents Shenea Stiletto Booth. Ladies and gentlemen, she is here. World champion, Hall of Famer. I can't believe I nabbed the Hall of Famer in my first season of In Center Ring. I don't know how I did it, but I did it. And we're not just talking about one Hall of Fame. You know, you've been holding out on me, Shenea. You've been holding out on me. Because I read there's another Hall of Fame, like an Acrobatics Hall of Fame that you're into. Something, she's in, because I thought people just get in one Hall of Fame. But you're in two Hall of Fames. Who's in two Hall of Fames?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how it happened. But I got there. Got there and grateful for it.
You don't have to apologize to anybody. Look, it's such a pleasure to have you here. I'm honored you took the time. This is so wonderful. I'm so happy I got to meet you during one of these wonderful panels we had with the wonderful Veronica Blair. And that's how we became acquainted. And you were so kind enough to invite me onto your wonderful podcast, Live Like an Acrobat. Folks, tune into that. Live Like an Acrobat. And I was so just over the moon to be able to talk to you. And it's been wonderful. So how are you doing in this pandemic? How are you doing just overall?
Oh, it's a time of reminding yourself just how little control you have over life and controlling the things that you do have control over, which is your spirit, which is your consciousness, which is your response to things, which is your innovation and creativity throughout the day. And I think also too, using this for like very, very, very deep reflection. So I've been reflecting on all sorts of things I haven't wanted to reflect on, and it's been great.
Acrobatic gymnastics has been something you've been doing since forever. How do you maintain such a life? Because it is such high level work.
I'm from the Silicon Valley, so I always tell people I'm the original Valley girl. I was born and raised in San Jose, California. And, that was at the time a millennial. So, so many things were kind of budding in and around the time when I was little. And I just so happened to be walking through a dance studio with my grandmother, who had put me in ballet and in tap and in jazz, because they saw that I needed to do something. I was a very shy little girl. I really liked to read. I didn't speak very much, and I love to keep to myself. But they saw that I could move really well. So I was walking through a dance studio one day, and my first coach, Nikolai Mihov, who immigrated from Bulgaria, he saw me walking with my grandmother, and he said, "I think she'd be perfect for this sport, acrobatic gymnastics. Would she like to try it? Could you bring her? We're gonna have a tryout tomorrow, and if she likes it, she likes it."
He said that just by looking at you, he didn't see you do anything. He just said, "I think she'd be perfect for the sport."
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Just seeing me.
Now, how old were you at that time?
I was a little old. I was 8, and he said that. He said she's a little old, but we'll take her. Yeah. So I always tell people, I was very late to the game.
Yeah, you were over the hill.
Yeah, I was over the hill at 8. The old gal still had it at 8.
What's the average age for that?
About 5.
Okay.
Yeah, about 5, 4, 5-ish. Yeah.
That's a bit early for me. I just thought you let them play in the playground until they're about 7, and then maybe something will come up. That's amazing. Okay. So 8 years old, and they point you out. You're the one. You're the golden child. All right. Okay. This is good. Let's hear it.
And it was just a spiral from there. I mean, I was in the most unlikely place, doing the most unlikely sport, I could have done regular gymnastics, but I didn't. And the journey with acrobatic gymnastics, because it's not an Olympic sport, is also still like very different. Where we've always been a very the underdog sport, the sport that the little sport that everybody loves, but that doesn't get the mainstream play, the mainstream media, because it isn't in that like Olympic space. Even though we're swirling in and around with all those people, so we're all going to the same type of competitions. Our main competition is World Championships. That's our Olympics. We do have the privilege to go to World Games, which I also competed there as well. But so to take it back to my journey of competing, I started competing and I never looked back. It was really the sport for me. And I started, and I owe pretty much everything to my first coach, Nikolai Mihov. Tragically, he died very young from lung cancer when I was about 12 years old, and he coached me and my sister, because I competed with my sister as well, so it became a family affair.
Was he over the hill too, or what? How old was she?
She was even older than me, which I'm actually just realizing that now when you said that. She was older than me, so I really don't know how they let her in. I mean, and how she became good. Because I had so many years on her, and then she became my base, supporting me, holding me up.
That's awesome.
And she was phenomenal. But my brothers and sisters, we all practiced at home. So I was a very dedicated little acrobat from the beginning. I trained and practiced all the time. When everybody else took summer breaks, I didn't. I was like the only one that did not take summer breaks. I actually would think of all the ideas for my coaches. So like I asked them for like my handstand blocks so that I could take them home during the summer. I asked them if I could take them home during breaks and during like Christmas and everything. And these weren't things that they were doing. They were just like my like little ideas, and they would be surprised that they would give me like skills to learn. They would like point to a picture and say like, do you want to try to learn that? And I would say, yeah. And I would train and figure out how to do it on my own at home and then show up at the gym, and they would just be like totally floored. And so it was my coach Nikolai and his wife Lori, and they really just gave me everything. And he, and it was a very difficult thing keeping, it's a very expensive sport. And there's a lot of gaps that you have to fill in. It literally takes a village to compete and travel all over the world and, pay for the leotards, pay for the choreography, pay for like all the gym spaces. We lost our gym several times. After Nikolai tragically passed away, I actually lost the sport for about a year and did not compete, didn't really even do anything. I actually stopped speaking for a long time because he was so important to me. So I was about 12, 13, and I didn't speak, I think, for like close to like 3 to 6 months. It was a very difficult thing. He literally was going through chemotherapy and laying down on the side of the mat and unable to eat and coaching us so that we could have a chance to go to Junior World Championships. Wow. So I just, I've always had people just, literally giving their lives for me to have a career and to push forward. He left such a big imprint and such a big legacy, and he created the entire foundation that I would use to go to my next gym. So after that, I had some other angels that came in and offered me and my sister and our partner at the time a space to come into their gym, and they were amazing. And it was my second coach, Anatoly, who's from Ukraine. So, again, everybody that's been important in my life are immigrants from Eastern Europe, and they are like the most magical, amazing beings. And I'm always going on about them and seeing all of their struggles so close up, because they all gave up pretty much everything, moved over when they weren't super young. A lot of my coaches moved to America over the age of 40. That's a big thing. Yes. To leave your entire country and your entire culture and set up and learn a new language and all of those things. So my next coach, Anatoly, was he was a very sage, wise, quiet man, and he got me to the next round of what I needed to be. And I went to World Championships with my sister and our partner Michelle at the time.
Can you explain the dynamics of having a partner as opposed, because most of us hear gymnastics, we hear acrobatics, we are thinking, okay, this is a solitary thing, but you really have the type of discipline that it does require a partner. It's almost like, I guess, ballroom dancing or something like that, where you need the partnership. So can you explain how that worked out?
Thank you for allowing me to explain it, because I never get tired of explaining the difference between gymnastics and acrobatic gymnastics. Since, people have been saying that to me my entire life, like, what on earth is an acrobat? What on earth is acrobatic gymnastics? What are you talking about? Do you have a beam? Do you have, uneven bars? And I'm always like, oh, my partner is my apparatus. So the beautiful thing about acrobatics is that a partner, another person, so you can have two girls competing together in acrobatics, you can have two boys competing together, you can have a boy and a girl competing, you can have three girls competing, which is what I did for a very long time and how I started out, or you can have four boys or four men competing together as well, called a men's four. So you have these different stages of disciplines within acrobatic gymnastics, and you have three routines. You have dynamic, you have static, and you have combination. And I'm probably getting those words wrong because I'm like the old one now, and so I use a lot of old terms. So for all of the young acrobatic gymnasts, they always look at me a little sideways, like, we don't call it that anymore, Shenea. And I'm like,
sorry,
I know. Yeah, sorry. I'm like, it doesn't make any difference. Tempo is tempo, whether it's dynamic or not. I don't care. Doesn't matter. So the beautiful thing about acrobatic gymnastics, which is how I got my start as well, is that it is not a soloist sport. It's not a soloist endeavor. And it does teach you very deeply and quickly the interdependence of all things, because you can't get anything done without the cooperation of another human being. And it has to not only be harmonious, it has to be safe, it has to be balanced, it has to be eloquent, it has to be pretty, and it has to be solid. I definitely want to say that you are definitely a different type of gymnast or athlete communicating and partnering with others than if you are a soloist. And I saw the journey of my friends that did rhythmic and did artistic gymnastics, and it was very difficult for them going into a lot of spaces because it's very self-centric. And people always think that acrobats are just so like open in our sport, and they're always very interested and curious about why we're so together and we get along with people so well. And we're like, yeah, but you have no choice. That person is either going to catch you or not, based upon if they are happy with you today. Because people are young, and those are different dynamics as well too that come into the sport that you have to figure out, and that you kind of it's not an easy game. I mean, I worked with my sister. She was always my older sister. It could be very difficult at times. I was always her younger sister.
You have to go home with each other. That's the thing that's worse. I mean, if you have a bad day, you got to live with that.
And the thing too about my amazing coaches is that they always reminded us that it was never one person's fault. It was always the group's fault. So if anything failed, everybody failed. There was no one to pick out to say okay, you did it, so we're just going to shame you out of that. So it's they were like, this is very communistic. It's everybody's problem.
I love that you pointed that out about the interconnectedness, the dependence on another, because it makes sense why your transition to the circus was just so seamless, because that is what that particular field is based on. As we know, everything is interdependent. Everyone depends on the other. There really isn't a star, and this is what people don't really realize. The show is a star. Tell us about making that transition into full-out entertainment, because obviously, even as an acrobatic gymnast, you aren't just, doing, acrobatic moves and athletic displays. You were entertaining. You had to. I mean, there was something in there. There was some flair. But how do you make that transition from this world-class career? Because you're not getting away from me with this one. I mean, you've got all these championships. You're inducted into the Hall of Fame. You're on America's Got Talent. After you go through all that, and how do you make this wonderful transition to the circus?
I love the fact that everything within my sport prepares you to go to the stage. So you have the choreography, you have the dance background, you have the skill level. And I also too was very fortunate to have to learn how to do these things in so many different environments, because my coach really wanted to set us up to be able to perform anywhere in the world, no matter the conditions. And that was drilled into us for years, that I don't care what planet you're performing on next week, It could be, it could be the moon, could be Mars. You're going to be ready. You're going to be prepared, and you're going to make it look easy, and you're going to make it look like you're sleeping. He always had a lot of different phrases, and I speak about him so much because he was so impactful, and I say that so much because I tell people that it is very important. Your mentors are just so important. Who you have setting you up for the things that you're going to do in your life are invaluable and are priceless. And I always go back to them because his truths and everything that he instilled in me, I still rely on to this day. And like I said, I don't think I would have survived within Circus the way that I had, and that I have without those things. Going on to a reality TV show, for example, like AGT, I was on the first season. I know they're on cycle 75, but I was on the first season, and again, back to my transition. I was scouted, by Cirque and to go into Circus from about 13. That's when Cirque they come into our competitions, and all the scouts know everybody, and they know my coach, and so they would come, and my coach would say, "Not yet, don't you dare,
don't touch it,
don't you dare. You're not touching her, you're not touching him, and you're not touching them together because they've got some work to do." He wanted us to get as far as we could in our career, and unfortunately we would have actually gone further. We actually even too would have been third-time world champion, but we were blocked from going to the world championships in 2003 because of the Iraq war. So we were stopped about a couple of days leading up to leaving actually for world championships. Yeah, so we
would have had a three-peat.
We would have had a three-peat. We would have had a three-peat. I always tell people, like, we could have, And,
but it would have been your second three-peat. See, you think I didn't read up on you. You had something with your sister, and there was someone else, and you all did a three-peat there. I mean, I'm telling you, your resume is like unfair. I said, well, she has a three-peat here. What are you, the Chicago Bulls? So tell me about that experience. You kind of threw your sister out of here. But let's talk about that championship run you all had as a troupe. It was you, your sister, there was someone else. I neglected to get the name, but I saw one year after another 3 times. So please tell me about that. I need to know about that.
Me and my sister, we were known as the Booth Trio. That's our last name, and we still laugh to this day because it's, we always thought it was a very funny last name. But we were coined the Booth Trio because we did a lot of firsts in acrobatic gymnastics. There were so many skills that were so technically high that had never been done before. And with my sister, because my sister is a stallion, like she could, hold up anybody, throw anybody up in the air, and and luckily enough, it was my sister, and we had our partner Maria, and then we had our amazing partner Michelle, and they were both just exquisite creatures, and because we had this brilliant coach, Nikolai, he just really he just saw past everything, all these things that hadn't been done in America. He was like, they can do it. I know that you guys can do it.
So it was a quartet.
No, it was three. And we had a partner, and then unfortunately our partner Maria injured. She tore her ACL. She tore her ACL right before the World Championships. So then we ended up having a replacement in Michelle just about 2 months before World Championships. So I went to World Championships as well with my sister. But yeah, Maria, we ended up being, I think, national champions still, but she tore her ACL on the floor. And I think we did. Yeah,
hold it off. I want to see the 30 for 30 on ESPN about that one. Forget this Last Dance stuff. Let's see that.
Very radical competing at that time during acrobatic gymnastics, especially being American, like I said, because we were the underdogs, and then we were even, and that was difficult as well too. We dealt with a lot of blowback at many times because we were trailblazers, because we did the moves that nobody had done yet, and they wanted their kids to do them, and why not ours? I guess things like that.
Underlying thing when it comes to, I always notice it during the Olympics. I don't think Americans are as zealous about it. I mean, we're excited about it, but we have options in life. These other countries, I remember seeing these documentaries, and they'd have whole schools dedicated to getting those medals. And I said, wow, man, like that's their whole life. And like, there's kind of like us against the world when it comes to, like, you can kind of feel it. And especially, I'd always notice it with the Winter Olympics. It was always ice skating. I noticed it. And in Summer Olympics, you always noticed it with gymnastics. I tune in because I was like, oh, this is going to be rough. That's what I'm like, they must have hated y'all. Like,
it did. It was so much politics. I'm telling you, the political field, and it's still rife with that now. And people, they don't like me talking about it because it's always supposed to be this very secretive thing. People don't like to talk about the politics of competition, and it always bursts everybody's bubbles because I think it's really important to speak on that, because without politics, you're not going to get to that podium. If you don't have politics, I don't care how good you are, you're not getting there. If you get there, some weird stroke of luck or genius, something really bad happened. And then you got there, especially if you're American, because, in terms of like the top competitors, Russia, Ukraine, Belarus.
Yeah, but you pulled it off 3 times. I mean, so I'm going, what went on? Well, you had your Ukrainian coaches, so they must have given you some secrets. Like, you all pulled this off 3 times, and that's what I'm just like, I'm amazed, because everything on your resume is just champion, screams out champion here, champion there. I would love to know, and I think so many people can find it useful. What is the process, just the focus of really just setting your mind to actually signal to your body, this is the goal, this is what we're doing, this is where we're going to, and to do that day in and day out? Clearly you had a passion for it. They say that genius is like stirred up, where it's like, especially young people, they figure out, oh my goodness, this is my thing, and they stick to it. And it's like they're just on it and on it and on it. So you've already had that, but then they're sustaining it, right? Yeah. So you had this world-class training. And that has to be, you're a human being. Somewhere, something has to kind of want to break. Maybe, hey, no, I don't know. How do you keep that level of excellence? 3-time champion, 2-time Hall of Fame, all this stuff. How do you keep that level of excellence consistently?
I always remind everyone, I was never the most talented. I was never the best acrobat. I just always stayed around longer than everyone else. And when my coaches asked of me to stay longer, I was like the only one that did, because I didn't feel like I was missing out on life. I thought, this is the life that I want to be into. So when people say, well, you didn't go to the movies, or you didn't go to all those things, and I never saw that as these sacrifices. I literally never did. And maybe I was, and I know a lot of other long-term professionals that have said this as well, but I never felt like I was giving up anything. I just felt like I was sourcing something within myself. I always wanted to be better than myself. I never competed, even now, in terms of thinking about others. I know people have dreams of being world champion, or dreams of attaining medals. I was never that type of kid. I always just really wanted to be excellent and be the excellence of what my coaches thought I could be. And I was around a lot of people that reminded me that I was not excellent, that I was no more special than anybody else, and that it was a privilege, and that we had the choice to be there, unlike many children in other spaces, which you were talking about, do not have the choices. So I was always told about my Western privilege all the time. My coach always reminded us, like, you don't really need to come and do this to eat. Like, wow. Do you realize that? Do you realize that this is your hobby and not your livelihood? And he would remind us, you can do anything. And I was meant to actually become a neurosurgeon. That's actually what I wanted to do as a little girl as well. My parents thought I was going to eventually just give this up and go to medical school. And, so my coach, they always talked about, like, you can do anything. And funnily enough, you're choosing to do this. And it was very difficult for them because it was very difficult trying to institute that type of training in the American system and in the American mind my other coaches were able to transfer that mindset and fuse it with the brilliance of America, because my coach said, I want to give you every single thing that I have, but I never want to take away your Americanness. And don't you ever forget that. He said, I never want you to lose that part of yourself, because that is something so special that we were not able to be gifted with in our environments coming from Eastern Europe.
So when he's saying your Americanness, is he really like saying your liberty, your freedom of choice in this, your joy in it?
My joy. Yeah, your joy in it, because he's like, you're here because you like love it. He's like, that's a radical thing. Like, you're here because you guys like love it. He's like, we weren't in this because we loved it. Like, the athletes,
get over there.
like, name, like to the left. It was really like that. I have so many stories, and it would just blow people away. And he's like, the people that you're competing against as well. This is so different. This is so different in terms of cultural honor for them. That is nothing like that for you guys. Your parents just want you to have something to do. She's in her bedroom reading Harry Potter all the time. And now
she's got to get out of this house.
She's got to go to the gym. She got to go to the gym. And then they regretted that, because then I came so hyper focused. I would cry if somebody was going to make me late to the gym. I would, and because there were consequences. And this is what I see even now for children, where people don't want to set up boundaries for them. I had a lot of boundaries imposed on me as an acrobat, and that again set me up to be disciplined. People, when I work in contracts with Circus, say that I'm usually the most professional person they've ever worked with. And that's because I had a lot of boundaries and had a lot of consequences when I was competing. If you did not do that right, if you showed up not right, you're speaking a certain way, you presented yourself in a certain way, there were consequences, and it was going to be hard, because
I want to hear about some of these consequences, because I'm sure you weren't always an angel and always focused, and I'm sure every now and then the adolescent came out in you and just like, ooh, where did that come from? I mean, just give me one example of something, some juicy for inside a ring.
It was kind of like a collective trouble. I unfortunately mostly minded my business. I was never usually delinquent in that way, but it would be things just in terms of it was for other people's things. So like I said, it was
right.
If like my family got me there not on time because something happened, that he would be like, that's your problem. And so then it would be like, you were going to do 5 routines, now you're going to do 15 routines, and or it would be like somebody's late, or my partner would be late, and so then we would get blocked from practicing, so we wouldn't be allowed to practice. Or if there was another acrobat that was maybe doing something else, it would impact us all. So I can't remember an exact thing of maybe when I was talking back. I was very emotional acrobat, I will say. I cried a lot. I do not know how they handled that, because I was a very crying child up until a certain point where I stopped crying. I would hide in the bathroom a lot. And the only consequences that I had from that is that I had to perform the skill that was new that I was so afraid of, because even though I loved it, I was very scared. I was a very anxious little acrobat learning those big skills. And so I would hide in the bathroom. I would cry for about an hour. They would make me come back out, and then we would do the skill, and then everybody would go home, and we'd have an ice cream or something. So
ice cream makes everything better. Ice cream, it's like a child's communion. It just makes everything so much better. I brag my kids with it all the time. I want to get into your career with Cirque. You've done several shows with Cirque. Of course, that was one of the major circus brands that everybody wanted to get into, and of course those in your field. And for you to actually get in that space and to be heavily recruited so young for that space, what was that like?
It was very special. I have loved Cirque du Soleil and seen the shows and been very fortunate to meet the artists in those shows from a young age. It was always a dream for me to work for Cirque du Soleil and to be in the shows and to get that chance and to get that opportunity. I would say working with Cirque and doing shows that we've done. I've done special events in so many amazing places all over the world with Cirque, and created shows very, very quickly and under the most radical conditions that you can imagine. And it's definitely been an adventure working with Cirque. I've had the opportunity to be offered several contracts over the years. I was going to do Amaluna, I was going to do Kidam, I was going to do Humanity. And in terms of just like availability, I didn't end up doing those shows. But, you know,
isn't that some kind of joy and kind of say, I'm sorry, I'm booked.
Yeah, exactly. I know. And who would think, right? I mean, it's just, it's very strange even still that like that most of those instances
but it's
happen
good.
like that.
It really is a testament to your coach's advice to you and what he really wanted to instill in you, having you be basically the one holding the reins to your career. You're not like a lot of us. A lot of us get out there with that singular dream. I want to make it to Broadway. I want to make it to Cirque. I want to make it to the now defunct Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey. And we forget there's so many different options out there for a very fulfilling career. And I'd love for you to really address that. You know, I mean, of course, great. You've been a world champion athlete. You're a Hall of Fame athlete, but you're also an independent artist. You're a business person here. So you can go from Cirque, you can go to the corporate events, you can go to major splashy events all over the world in Dubai, and you can go to, of course, the reality talent shows. You can hit off on all of those and still be fulfilled. I'd love for you to really address what is it like to manage in that space, to constantly manage in that space, to really keep your hustle going.
It's not for the faint of heart, because in some ways you lose certain levels of security, and me and my partner did have that at some times, because we, you know, were offered 2-year contracts and we said, no, we only want to do 1 year. And they were like, well, you know, like, you're either going to take the 2 years or you're going to.
You're like, I don't have to. I love that. Yeah. The fact that you don't have to, though. You
we said no.
Yes. Yeah. You can say no. You can say no.
You can say no to things, and you know, and I know that we're in a business where people feel like you can never say no to anything, right? Every time somebody's coming to you with anything, you always have to take it. You always have to take it, and that's very difficult. I feel like sometimes that can be kind of a sickness, but then also too that's part of survival as well, because I've had to take and do jobs that I necessarily maybe didn't want to do, and some of the jobs sometimes that I've taken that I didn't want to do ended up being really great jobs. So that's also, you know, kind of played off on that. But I think it's very, yeah, surprising. Exactly. Very surprising. Sometimes, you know, like where life or love or the universe leads you just down roads for very different reasons. And I think that's also important just to remember in terms of like, this is like your life. And I've always remembered too that this is my life, and my life is more than my career. And I'm not just a career. I'm not just this circus performer and this circus artist. I feel like you have to have, you know, a vision outside of it. I had many instances in my life and in my career where I've had to move on from something, and change is very difficult, but I've had a lot of change. We're all used to a lot of change.
Absolutely.
And especially just, you know, the circus life is, it's constant upheaval. It's constant change. It's constantly, you know, remaking yourself and reinventing yourself. And that's also a space that I've consistently come from too, as an artist, wanting to reinvent myself, even when it's difficult, even when you feel like I have to come out with another thing that is new, and also to choosing the things that you want to do, because what you choose to do is not going to be perceived by everybody equally or in the same way, or the way that you, for example, really want it. Like, I really love burlesque circus. I love it. I love the Lido. I love Crazy Horse. I love Humanity. I love the show Taboo by Dragon. Like, I love vaudeville. I love that type of, you know, but it's sequestered.
Is that where the moniker Stiletto comes from?
That's where the Stiletto comes from. I mean, the way that you can do a handstand act after you apply a stiletto, I mean, it just, I think it takes the cake. I think it adds something so great. And just something so beautiful. It just changes the line, and that's why I create an act like that. And I think that if you want to do certain things, then you create and you develop the content that supports that environment that you want to go into. And I've always done that. I've always been like self-served, and I think that's smart too, where you're not relying on other people to drive that for you, to drive that creativity, to create and build those things. I always tell them that was my money. That was my that was my retirement fund. That was all of it. It was everything.
You're in Hollywood. You're in the home of the stars. So I mean, of course, I know you've put your skills to use for the silver screen, for the small screen. Tell us about that. Tell us about your career, in the film business.
It's a very different ballgame here, I would say it's changed a lot as well, because Circus just wasn't in and around in everything the way that it is now. So when we used to go to auditions in LA, there were literally like 4 of us that were coming as the specialty acts, as the hand-handers, as the hand balancers, as the contortionists, as the jugglers. You could count the people on your hand coming to that commercial audition. So it's a very specific field. Auditioning is not something that I usually have to do in Circus. I've not done many live auditions. I've gotten hired mostly from my reel and showed up and done the job. And even just submitted maybe an audition tape and gotten the job that way too. And now when I go and do like auditions, I would say, before if there was like maybe 10 or 15, now there's like 100 to 200.
Oh yes, because now it's in vogue,
Yeah.
We have all of these circus schools, so everybody's an acrobat and everybody's juggling. And you have a few hand balancers there too. But I mean, really it's like, wow, everybody's an aerialist, and everybody's like, Broadway is becoming the same thing now. You used to just have to sing, act, and dance. Now you have to be Captain America now. It's like, it's amazing, so people are expanding, and I think because it's fascinating, right? So the art itself, Circus, is still somewhat frowned upon, and yet the popularity of it among those who are into fitness, so to speak, now pole dancing is the thing. Pole dancing, pole dancing, Do you know how I feel a little jilted about that, to be honest with you, because all my years of research, I was condemned for my research many years ago, and now to see, now it's a competition. It's something else. Okay.
Well, and I have a bone to pick too, because me performing burlesque, sexy, sensually, I was getting flack for that for a very long time, and then I turn around and now it's okay to just be in a thong and twirl on the pole, and it's and it's on mainstream TV with children, and I'm like, what? I have been shamed and called out, and and now it's in the Olympics. Stripping is in the Olympics.
Yes, it is.
That's it's right. Pole dancing.
Pole dancing is in the Olympics. I'm going, boy, look how far we've come. But listen, to their credit,
never know.
I remember during my times of research with my other research partners, I would sit there in the laboratory with the many different specimens, as we call them, and I would always remark, man, they're really athletic. I mean, that's a lot. They're in the heels. It takes core strength to hold on to that and do all those. And now, I can't really say it's not a bad thing. So, you know what? I think, look, it is athleticism in its own way. And of course, it's very sensual. It's dynamic. And look, you have to be in shape to do it. There's some effort there. So, more power to them. That's their freedom. I think it's wonderful.
I just want the girls that started the game to get the credit where credit is due.
I know, right? Right. Delandra and Sparkle are like, what happened?
I want them to get their shot at Olympic gold too, because we would be nothing without them. That's what
some kind of honorary something.
am not joking because I believe the same thing you do. Like
They are the
know you.
pioneers.
Yeah.
They're the pioneers.
Yeah, it's
People
there.
called all sorts of deplorable things.
Yeah.
And
now it's okay. Now it's just like nothing. Now we can do it at church.
and
You
praise
know?
dances.
Yeah, like no, we need to make amends.
Yeah.
And reparations are in order for our dear ladies that were holding it down for decades before everybody else thought that it was the fitness thing to do.
The black experience in circuses go back hundreds of years, and we do it with our own style. The circus has been a microcosm of the outside world. Many of the same prejudices that you see in the outside world are present in the circus.
So it's moving past the vision or the limited vision that the society has for you and stepping into the talent and skill that you know you have to go forward as a performer.
The circus is a vast international community, and there's only one place to connect for jobs, events, the latest news, and so much more. CircusTalk.com. Join today.